We're already 13 days into the new year, and as Assembly members come out with their list of goals for the year, Assemblyman Scott Gray has announced his major priorities for 2025. Here's 7 News reporter Mark Mason Jr.
In Assemblyman Scott Gray's latest episode of The Gray Area, he listed his top 5 priorities for 2025. And starting off his list, public safety.
Public safety would be number 1.
Gray specifically mentions the migrant crisis, which he hopes to address the ongoing impacts of. Also on that list, childcare, which Gray looks to make more available to those who need it.
Childcare is affordable, is critical to enabling the workforce participation, and I'll work to continue to address efforts to make that a vital issue.
Education, another priority for Gray. He says he's advocating for adaptable and reasonable education policies.
Our schools need flexibility, not a one-size-fits-all mandate. I will advocate for resource sharing initiatives to maintain district-level decisions.
Also mentioned under education was a proposed phone ban. Gray says he opposes a bell-to-bell phone ban, but supports a phone ban during classroom instructional time. Another focus this year, economic opportunities. With Micron on its way to Syracuse and the economic ripple effect that's expected to reach our area, Gray says he's positioning the region to maximize the benefits of Micron's economic impact. And lastly, a balanced energy policy. This year, Gray wants to support an energy strategy that balances environmental responsibility with affordability, while respecting personal choice over mandates. Gray also left a message for those within the 116th Assembly District.
I remain committed to solutions that improve the lives of everyone in the 116th Assembly District. Listening and learning from you is how I best represent our district when I'm in Albany.
The Gray Area is set to come out weekly to keep folks informed on new developments. Mark Mason Jr., 7 News.